Okay, Chrissy, I'll get in the tub with you, then we can get it on.
Listen to me, I'll show you what to do.
Do you remember when television laughter echoed from every living room? When sitcoms were bright, mischievous, and just a little bit scandalous? In the late 1970s, few shows captured that spirit better than Three's Company. It was the perfect cocktail of slapstick misunderstanding and charm. Three young roommates navigating life, love, and confusion in sunny Santa Monica. John Ritter's pratfalls, Joyce DeWitt's steady calm, and Suzanne Somers' iconic giggle defined an era when audiences gathered around the TV instead of scrolling through screens. But behind the laughter and neon sets was a world of chaos, rivalry, and creative luck, a story almost as dramatic as the show itself. These were the moments when real life blurred with fiction, when network politics collided with personality, and when television magic was born from accident. Let's open the time capsule and revisit 12 of the strangest, most unforgettable facts behind Three's Company. Fact number 12. The color-coded chaos of Chrissy's exit. By the dawn of the 1980s, Three's Company wasn't merely a sitcom, it was a cultural phenomenon pulsing through America's living rooms. But behind the steady rhythm of canned laughter and slapstick misunderstandings, the atmosphere on set had turned tense. Suzanne Somers, the actress who had become the show's golden girl, found herself in the middle of a pay dispute that would test the limits of Hollywood's hierarchy. After 4 seasons of record-breaking ratings, she demanded $150,000 per episode and a percentage of the show's profits, a sum more than triple her co-star John Ritter's salary. The request wasn't just bold, it was revolutionary for its time. When producers refused, Somers held her ground, and the studio retaliated by isolating her from the rest of the cast. To the audience, everything seemed fine. Chrissy Snow still appeared on screen, chirping through brief phone calls and comedic asides. But what viewers didn't know was that Somers filmed those moments alone in a separate room, guarded by security away from Joyce DeWitt and John Ritter. Writers scrambled to keep the story functional, producing 2 separate versions of each script, one including Chrissy and one without her. To avoid confusion, the drafts were color-coded, a desperate system to manage the unpredictable tension on set. The production chaos mirrored a broader industry shift. Women across Hollywood were beginning to question unequal pay and creative control, but few dared to challenge network executives so publicly. Somers' standoff became a cautionary tale, and decades later, an early chapter in the larger conversation about pay equity in entertainment. In the end, Chrissy's absence became a metaphor for the invisible struggles women faced in show business, smiling on camera while fighting behind the scenes. It was ironic that a sitcom built entirely on misunderstandings ended up creating its own off-screen misunderstanding that nearly tore it apart. Three's Company survived, but the harmony among its cast would never truly return. Fact number 11. The show's triple pilot gamble. Before Three's Company became a household name, it faced a series of false starts that would have buried most productions. ABC didn't just hesitate, it stumbled. Between 1975 and 1977, the show went through 3 different pilots, each one slightly retooled in search of the perfect comedic formula. The first version, penned by MASH veteran Larry Gelbart, featured John Ritter as a struggling filmmaker named David Bell, living with 2 women who shared none of the chemistry audiences would later adore. The tone was off the rhythm flat, and the humor failed to land. ABC shelved it. The second pilot took another swing. Now Ritter played Jack Tripper, joined by Joyce DeWitt and Susan Lanier. It was closer, but something still didn't click. Network executives could sense the potential, yet couldn't explain why it remained untapped. Then came the third attempt. Lanier was replaced by Suzanne Somers, and suddenly the chemistry lit up the screen. Ritter's physical comedy, DeWitt's grounded realism, and Somers' charming innocence fused into something magic. ABC finally said yes, and Three's Company premiered in March 1977. The lesson of those pilots went beyond the show itself. In the 1970s, the network system was ruthless. Only 1 in 10 pilots ever made it to air. But Three's Company proved that persistence, timing, and a bit of luck could transform rejection into television history. ABC executives later admitted that the third pilot had something intangible, a warmth and authenticity, and a modern edge that made risque humor feel safe in middle American homes. When it finally premiered, the series quickly became one of ABC's defining hits, reshaping the network's identity and inspiring a wave of similar ensemble comedies that carried American TV through the late 1970s and early 1980s. It was proof that sometimes the third try doesn't just succeed, it defines an era. Fact number 10. Suzanne Somers' accidental casting. Some casting decisions are the result of careful deliberation, chemistry tests, and months of planning. Others happen in the blink of an eye. Suzanne Somers' path to becoming Chrissy Snow was one of those improbable moments when fate overruled formality. After 2 failed pilots, Three's Company was still missing its final spark, the character who would balance Jack's physical comedy and Janet's grounded common sense. Several blonde actresses had already auditioned for the part, including Somers herself, only to be rejected. But that changed when ABC executive Fred Silverman was reviewing audition tapes late one evening, reportedly fast-forwarding through them to save time. In that haze of quick rewinds and rapid clicks, he paused on Somers' face and replayed her brief segment. Something clicked. Her charm felt effortless, her smile disarming. Without further meetings or callbacks, Silverman made a decision that would rewrite television history. The next morning, Suzanne received a call. She had the role and filming started the following day. That instinctive decision transformed her from an unknown actress with small TV credits into one of the most recognizable faces of late 1970s pop culture. Somers' performance as Chrissy Snow was more than comedic naivete. It was a calibrated blend of innocence and warmth that made risque humor palatable for network audiences. Her breathy laugh and wide-eyed confusion became her trademark, spawning countless parodies and solidifying the archetype of the lovable blonde for years to come. From a modern perspective, Somers' casting illustrates the unpredictable magic of pre-digital Hollywood. Long before analytics, focus groups, and social media metrics, careers could hinge on a single instinct. Media historians often cite Silverman's decision as one of the most successful examples of executive intuition in television history, a gamble that turned into gold. And for Somers, that one moment of serendipity marked the beginning of both her stardom and eventually her greatest professional controversy. Fact number 9. The alternate Jacks that never were. Imagine an alternate version of Three's Company without John Ritter. It almost happened. When producers began casting Jack Tripper, they considered several promising names, Billy Crystal, Barry Van Dyke, and Michael Lembeck among them. Each brought a different tone. Crystal, already known for his sharp wit, would have played Jack as a fast-talking observer rather than a physical comedian. Van Dyke might have embodied the role with wholesome charm, a natural extension of his father Dick Van Dyke's legacy. Lembeck, with his New York edge, could have leaned toward dry humor and sarcasm, all capable but none quite right. Then John Ritter walked in, and everything changed. Ritter had a physical agility that bordered on choreography. Every fall, every stumble, every exaggerated facial expression timed with precision. He transformed slapstick into a language of its own, one that audiences instinctively understood. When he tripped over furniture, it wasn't just clumsy comedy, it was rhythm, grace, and vulnerability wrapped into one movement. Ritter turned Jack into the beating heart of the show, the nervous but lovable dreamer caught between two roommates and endless misunderstandings. Critics often compare Ritter's performance to the silent film greats Chaplin Keaton, even Lucille Ball for his ability to communicate emotion without a word. Don Knotts would later call him the best physical comedian of his generation. Had Billy Crystal been cast, the show might have leaned into wordplay and social satire. With Ritter, it became kinetic, expressive, and universal. This casting choice was more than luck. It was an acknowledgement that television comedy in the late 1970s was evolving, moving from punchline-driven humor to performance-based storytelling. Ritter's work on Three's Company didn't just make the show successful, it influenced a generation of sitcom actors who learned that movement could be as powerful as dialogue. Fact number 8. Don Knotts and the Emmy-winning Anxiety. When Don Knotts joined Three's Company in its 4th season, the addition looked like a masterstroke, an established comedy legend stepping into a show already at its peak. Yet behind the confident grin and trademark swagger of Mr. Furley Knotts was deeply anxious. Known for his role as the nervous deputy Barney Fife on The Andy Griffith Show, Knotts had already won 5 Emmys and achieved television immortality. But by the late 1970s, he hadn't performed before a live studio audience in years. The pace of multi-camera comedy was relentless, multiple setups, rapid cues, and laughter erupting in real time. It was an entirely different rhythm from the single-camera world he'd dominated earlier. Knotts reportedly worried he might not keep up. The cast of Three's Company had already developed impeccable timing, their chemistry honed through hundreds of rehearsals and live tapings. Walking into that dynamic could have intimidated anyone. Yet once cameras rolled, his hesitation vanished. Dressed in loud polyester suits and clashing colors, Knotts turned nervousness into art. His jittery gestures, misplaced confidence, and exaggerated expressions turned Mr. Furley into a comic icon, a man simultaneously proud and insecure, absurd and endearing. Within weeks, the ratings spiked. Critics credited Knotts' arrival with reviving the show's momentum after Somers' controversial departure. In retrospect, his character embodied the show's enduring theme: appearances versus reality, confidence masking chaos. Entertainment historians later observed that Knotts' transition mirrored a larger trend in television, the blending of old-school character acting with the faster tempo of modern sitcoms. He wasn't replacing the past, he was reinventing it. For viewers, Mr. Furley became a reminder of the show's resilience. Even amid cast shakeups and backstage tensions, Three's Company found fresh energy through a veteran who still had something to prove. Fact number 7. Jeffrey Tambor, the sitcom shapeshifter. Before Jeffrey Tambor became synonymous with prestige comedy, in Arrested Development and Transparent, he was quietly building one of television's strangest resumes, including multiple roles on Three's Company. Between 1979 and 1982, Tambor appeared in 4 different episodes as entirely different characters. One week, he was a pompous doctor. The next, a pretentious neighbor. Later, a smug real estate agent. No in-universe explanation was ever given. The show simply recast him repeatedly, assuming the audience wouldn't notice. In the pre-digital age, that assumption wasn't wrong. Most viewers missed the overlap, and those who noticed treated it as an inside joke. To casting directors, Tambor was a reliable utility player, adaptable, expressive, and instantly memorable. His recurring reappearances reflected the recycling culture of late 1970s television, when studios reused strong performers rather than risk untested newcomers. When The Ropers spin-off launched, Tambor reprised one of his Three's Company characters, Jeffrey P. Brooks III, as the snobbish neighbor who constantly looked down on the title couple. Though The Ropers didn't last, Tambor's presence gave it an extra layer of continuity, unintentionally creating one of television's earliest shared universes. Looking back, it's hard not to see a strange kind of brilliance in this repetition. Tambor became a chameleon, a man who could walk into the same set 4 times and convince audiences each time he was someone new. That quiet versatility foreshadowed the character-driven storytelling that would define television decades later. Before prestige TV embraced meta-humor and layered personas, Three's Company had already experimented with it by accident. Together, Knotts' old-school mastery and Tambor's experimental flexibility marked a turning point for the show. Three's Company wasn't just surviving, it was evolving, balancing tradition and reinvention in every frame. Fact number 6. Jason Ritter's unplanned cameo. Some of television's most touching moments aren't written, they simply happen. During the filming of Three's Company's 6th season opening sequence, a seemingly minor blooper turned into a piece of family history. The scene was simple. Janet feeds a goat at the zoo surrounded by cheerful animals. But in the middle of the take, a small toddler wandered into frame, curious, fearless, and completely unaware of the cameras. That child was Jason Ritter, the real-life son of John Ritter and actress Nancy Morgan. He had followed his father to the set that day and, drawn by the commotion, toddled right into television history. Rather than reshoot, producers decided to keep the footage. It felt spontaneous, real, a rare slice of authenticity in a world of rehearsed laughter. What they didn't realize was that they had captured something symbolic. John Ritter's career was built on warmth and physical storytelling, and in that unscripted moment, his legacy was quietly passed to the next generation. Decades later, Jason Ritter would grow into a respected actor himself, starring in Joan of Arcadia and Parenthood, and carrying the same gentle humanity that made his father beloved. From today's perspective, that fleeting cameo reads like a cinematic prophecy, a tiny boy wandering into his father's art, unaware that he would one day continue it. For fans, the moment became an unintentional time capsule, a father's laughter and a son's beginning immortalized in the same frame. Fact number 5. Janet and Chrissy's real-life feud. While the chemistry on screen appeared effortless, the reality between Joyce DeWitt and Suzanne Somers was anything but. Their relationship, once friendly, collapsed during Somers' salary standoff. As negotiations soured, the tension rippled through the entire cast. DeWitt, known for her professionalism, felt betrayed by what she saw as Somers' self-centered behavior. Somers, meanwhile, believed she was fighting for fairness, not just for herself, but for all women in the industry. When production resumed, communication stopped. For over 3 decades, the two women didn't speak a single word to each other. Not at events, not in interviews, not even after the show ended. Hollywood insiders described it as one of the longest-running silent feuds in television history. Behind that silence was a reflection of the pressures women faced in male-dominated Hollywood competition, dressed up as empowerment rivalry framed as survival. Then in 2012, something remarkable happened. Somers invited DeWitt to appear on her talk show. After 30 years, they finally reunited on camera, not as rivals, but as two veterans who had lived through the same storm. Their conversation was raw and emotional, filled with tears, apologies, and shared memories of John Ritter, whose death in 2003 still cast a shadow over their reunion. What began as a paycheck dispute had turned into a lifelong scar, but their meeting offered closure for them and for millions of viewers who had grown up watching their friendship unfold on screen. Entertainment reporters at the time called it a reunion Hollywood didn't know it needed. That moment proved something profound. Even when laughter fades, empathy can return. The audience that once laughed with them now watched them heal. In a way, it was the perfect final episode Three's Company never filmed. Fact number 4. Lana Shields, the vanishing neighbor. In television history, few characters disappeared as quietly as Lana Shields. Introduced in Season 4 as a confident, flirtatious neighbor with her sights set on Jack Tripper, Lana was meant to add a mature comedic twist, a woman older than Jack constantly turning his flirtatiousness against him. Played by Anne Wedgeworth, the character was lively, funny, and instantly recognizable. Yet she lasted only 9 episodes before vanishing without a trace. No farewell, no explanation, no final bow. One week she was there, the next she wasn't. The reason wasn't laziness, but logic. John Ritter himself questioned the storyline's foundation. Jack Tripper, the show's lovable womanizer, suddenly rejecting romantic attention from an attractive, confident woman made no sense. To Ritter, the gag felt false, a betrayal of the character's established personality. Writers struggled to adapt, and as tensions rose, Wedgeworth quietly asked to be released from her contract. The producers agreed, and just like that, Lana disappeared from the apartment complex, never to be mentioned again. From a creative standpoint, Lana's removal underscored a recurring sitcom dilemma when jokes drive the story more than character truth. The humor eventually collapses. Modern television writers often cite the Lana problem as a case study in maintaining character consistency. It was a lesson Three's Company learned mid-season, and it reshaped how writers balanced running gags with believable human behavior. Still among longtime fans, Lana's sudden absence became one of those delicious, unsolved mysteries, a pop culture ghost haunting reruns. Her brief presence reminded audiences that even in comedy, logic matters. Fact number 3. The Ropers' short-lived spin-off. At the height of Three's Company's success network, executives saw an opportunity to take the fan-favorite landlords Stanley and Helen Roper, give them their own show, and strike sitcom gold twice. Thus, The Ropers was born in 1979. The concept seemed foolproof. The couple moves from their old apartment building to a suburban neighborhood where their bickering and mismatched social aspirations continue. For a moment, it worked. Riding on the popularity of Three's Company, the new series opened strong ranking in the top 10 during its first season. But by the second year, ratings plunged. The problem was tone. What had made the Ropers hilarious in short bursts, Stanley's stinginess, and Helen's frustrated affection, grew tiresome when stretched across 30 minutes. Their chemistry, once electric, began to feel repetitive. Audiences missed the ensemble chaos of Three's Company, where the Ropers' eccentricity served as spice, not the main course. When ABC quietly moved the show to a weaker Saturday time slot, its fate was sealed. The Ropers ended after just 2 seasons and 28 episodes. Behind the scenes, the cancellation created heartbreak and irony. Norman Fell, who played Stanley, had a clause in his contract allowing him to return to Three's Company if the spin-off failed within its first year. Unfortunately, because it survived just beyond that, the clause expired, and by then Don Knotts had already filled the landlord role as Mr. Furley. Fell never returned except for one brief cameo. In hindsight, The Ropers illustrates a timeless truth of television: not every supporting act can stand alone. The humor that once thrived in contrast with others became repetitive in isolation. Yet in failure, the spin-off left a legacy. It revealed the fragility of TV chemistry and how success sometimes depends on being part of a larger, unpredictable whole. Fact number 2. Larry Dallas, the scene stealer who stayed. Not every sitcom legend begins as a star. Some emerge from the sidelines unplanned and unforgettable. Richard Klein's character, Larry Dallas, Jack Tripper's smooth-talking neighbor and perpetual schemer, was originally intended to appear in just one episode. His role was simple: a flashy used car salesman with an eye for opportunity and a knack for bad advice. But once the cameras rolled, everything changed. Klein's energy matched John Ritter's perfectly. Their comedic timing felt spontaneous, like two musicians riffing off each other's rhythm. The writers noticed, and audiences did too. Larry's sly grins, wild stories, and disastrous get-rich-quick plans became indispensable. Soon, the one-off guest turned into a recurring figure, and by season 4, Klein's name joined the opening credits. Larry Dallas wasn't the hero or the villain. He was the charming instigator, the friend who set chaos in motion. His interactions often acted as catalysts for the show's best misunderstandings. Critics later pointed out that Larry embodied a uniquely American archetype, the lovable hustler, equal parts charisma and catastrophe. While other sitcoms of the era focused on moral lessons, Three's Company embraced the comedy of imperfection, and Larry embodied that perfectly. Outside the show, Richard Klein's career flourished in theater and television, from City of Angels to Wicked and The Americans. Yet no matter how far he went, he remained proud of the character that made him famous. For fans, Larry Dallas became more than comic relief. He was a reminder that the best stories often come from the accidents of casting and chemistry. Fact number 1. Lonnie Anderson's almost role. Before Suzanne Somers lit up television screens as Chrissy Snow, another actress, nearly took the part and almost changed sitcom history. Her name was Lonnie Anderson. With her striking looks, sharp wit, and undeniable screen presence, Anderson impressed producers early in the casting process. But as rehearsals unfolded, a problem emerged. She was too good for the role. Chrissy was meant to be naive and delightfully airheaded, a woman whose confusion drove the show's misunderstandings. Anderson's confidence, timing, and intelligence made her performance too sophisticated for what the writers envisioned. The producers reluctantly passed on her and gave the role to Somers, whose natural innocence and charm captured the playful tone they needed. It was a decision that shaped both women's careers. Somers became a cultural icon through Three's Company, while Anderson went on to find her perfect role as Jennifer Marlowe in WKRP in Cincinnati, a character who embodied the opposite archetype, a blonde who was sharp, capable, and always in control. Their divergent paths reflected a shift happening in late 1970s television. Female characters were evolving beyond stereotypes, transitioning from the dumb blonde trope to complex, competent leads. Anderson's later success showed that smart and glamorous could coexist, a concept that television would spend decades exploring. In 2025, Anderson's passing marked the end of an era. For fans, it was a bittersweet reminder of how closely television's golden age is tied to memory. Had she taken the role of Chrissy Snow, Three's Company would have been a different show, funnier in some ways perhaps, but missing the delicate innocence that defined it. Her story closes the loop on Three's Company's strange legacy, a series built on coincidence, improvisation, and the unpredictable magic of television. Looking back, Three's Company was far more than a string of jokes about mixed signals and mistaken identity. It was a mirror of its era, a late 1970s America that was awkwardly learning how to laugh at itself while redefining social boundaries. Beneath the laughter, the show captured the tensions of gender, fame, and ambition that would echo through decades of television to come. From Suzanne Somers' pay battle and John Ritter's genius for physical comedy to Don Knotts' triumphant comeback and Lonnie Anderson's near miss, every story behind the scenes revealed how fragile and human success could be. Rewatching it today, the show feels like a time capsule sealed in laughter. Its pastel sets and booming laugh tracks recall a world that seemed simpler, but its production chaos, silent feuds, and quiet triumphs remind us that television has always been built on both brilliance and imperfection. In its most chaotic moments, Three's Company reflected the unpredictability of real life, full of misunderstandings, sudden exits, and unexpected reunions. Even after nearly half a century, the series still inspires affection. Its humor, innocence, and humanity continue to bridge generations. So, of the 12 facts above, which one surprised you the most? Share your thoughts below. We love reading your memories and reflections. Thank you for watching and for keeping the laughter of television's golden age alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more stories from the shows that shaped our childhoods. See you in the next video. This is TV Time Capsule.